And if you ask somebody what's valuable to them, they'll usually give something that's not exactly concise. But by doing this process, it gets concise. So the value determination process is a 13-step questionnaire that I have developed to help people identify what's truly important to them. And once you set goals that are congruent with that, that's when the magic begins. So you look at how people fill their space, you look at how they spend their time, you look at what they are disciplined about and focused on, you look at where they're most organized, you look at where they spend the most money, you look at what energizes them the most, you look at what they think about, visualize, affirm, and converse with others about most, that is in line with what they're creating in life. Look at what they're inspired by, what their goals are, and what they love learning. If you look and find the common threads to those questions, it'll narrow down to what you're dedicated to and what you spontaneously can't wait to get up in the morning and do. So determining your own values and determining other people's values that you want to serve is an essential component, because you're here to be able to find something that serves other people, but it's also meaningful to you. If you find those two, you've got your niche. Now you've got exactly what you would love to get up in the morning and do, and you get to go and do what exactly people want, and you get to fulfill their life. I always say, when you can't wait to get up in the morning and do what you love to do, people can't wait to get your service. We have learned more and more over the years about how the mind works and the physics of it. So I don't think there's any defiance of any physics laws. I think what it is that we just are learning more about how it works. I mean, just recently they found out that there's molecules that are basically a pheromonic that are basically released from the cells in the skin. They go out and release and are actually able to influence a group of people. So that means that you can actually sense through molecules what emotion somebody else is having. Now, they didn't know that occurred until recently. So when you're in a room, you can have a sense for other people and sense what they're feeling and intuitively guess that. But now we found out that that's been actually traced to molecules. They just recently found out we have other senses that we didn't realize. So as we learn more and more about the brain and the physiology, a lot of the mystical components of it start dropping away. So I'd rather not say that it's outside the laws of physics. I just say that we haven't learned all the physics laws. What happens is every human being lives by a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most important to least important in their life. Whenever they set goals that are congruent and aligned with their highest values, they become the most powerful and effective people they can be. This is when they're the most grateful, the most resilient. This is when they're most disciplined and most fulfilled in their life. Whenever they're living by lower values and trying to inject the values of others or minimize themselves and live by lower value systems, they procrastinate, hesitate, frustrate, and they become, you might say, victims of their history, not masters of their destiny. If you are not living by your highest values, because you're wanting to do it with pleasure only and you'll want to give up of its pain, you'll need motivation all the time. The difference between inspiration, which is from within, is people who are inspired from within are living by their highest values. And people that need motivation from without are people that haven't found that highest value and are living by lower values, and they need constant incentives and motivation and only pleasure to keep them going. So I'm not a motivational speaker, and I don't promote motivation, because I think motivation is a symptom more than a solution. Finding out what's highest on a person's values, finding out what inspires them from within, transcends the need for motivation. Well, anytime you're setting a goal that is not congruent with your highest values, you're more vulnerable to fear. Because you're looking for pleasure, and anytime you're looking for a pleasure without a pain, you have a fantasy. And every fantasy creates a nightmare. And if you're setting up a goal that has got a pleasure without a pain, you're going to end up having a pain without a pleasure as a result as a fear. A person who's smart with goals will know they will go and look at their goal. The person who plans out all the pains and pleasures and all the opportunities and challenges that might happen and thinks them through and come up with contingency plans, so no matter what happens, they're prepared. They're the person that reduces the fear zone. So if you have a goal and you got a big enough reason for something and you've thought out your plan, you reduce the probability of having phobias and pains. I think you need to have balanced thinking, know both sides, have a preparation for both sides. That's a true strategy. People that have clear plans like that, they get their outcomes. I think that people who think they're going to be positive all the time are delusioned. So I'm not a positive thinking guy. I'm a balanced thinking guy. But when people are down, that you need the positive thinking. But when you're up and you're fantasizing and setting up fantasies and pies in the skies, you need some critical thinking to be able to put you back into reality. So I'm a believer in both sides are needed. Well, the real principle behind the law of attraction is not really metaphysical, as some would like to propose, although it seems to be, because we don't understand the laws behind it. If you're a woman and you're dedicated to children and you have 3 beautiful children and you walk in a mall, you're going to notice things related to children. You're not going to notice business materials. But if you're an entrepreneur and you're walking in a mall, you're going to notice business things. You're not going to notice children's things. So that means that whatever is most important to you, whatever is highest on your value, whatever your real purpose and most inspiration is, you're going to filter out of your reality. You're going to see opportunities. You're going to make decisions quicker because you got more awareness, and you're going to stick to them with more perseverance in that area, and you're going to see more synchronicities. So a lot of the secret is simply those things that occur spontaneously when you're congruent with your highest values. Because so many people came up to me at the thing and I said, well, the secret didn't work for me. Like one lady came and said, I went out to my mailbox and I expected $1 million check. I did it every day for 3 months and there was never $1 million check. I suggested that she go out and try to get a job. Now, there's only two ways to having fulfillment. Either you set goals that match the highest values, or you change the values to match the goals you say. So if I go and I stand in front of thousands of people and I ask, how many of you want to be financially independent? Everybody puts their hand up. When I ask how many are, most everybody puts their hand down. 1% or less actually make financial independence, but 100% of the hands go up. So that means 99% of the people are living in a delusion. And if you ask them what are they going to do if I gave them $10 million, I guarantee you, I've done it thousands of times, 2 to 8 million of that will be spent in less than a minute. If you ask them what would they do if they had $10 million, they'd write down all the things. They'd buy that car, they'd buy that trip, they'd buy this. It was all consumers, all depreciables, all devaluing. As long as they spend their money on depreciables and consumables, they really don't have a real desire for building wealth. They have to invest it and buy things that appreciate in value if they want to be wealthy. And people who don't have those values aren't going to get there. Out of all the studies I've done, axiology, the study of values and worth, is the most crucial study that I know. I've just finished a book this week, and it's the most crucial topic that they will have in business, because human beings are not here to be motivated, they're here to be inspired from within. And when they live by their highest values, that's what happens. That's when they're a genius in the mind, productive at work. That's when they get the greatest self-worth. That's when they end up communicating most effectively what they love. That's when they wake up their leadership. That's when their health is most vital and energized. And that's when they're most inspired by a vision. Persons procrastinating about what they say they want to do, and they think it's anytime you say something is important and you need to be reminded to do it, it's not it. You haven't found it. I see this every day in my programs. People come to me and says, I keep procrastinating, I keep doing it. For probably a decade, I asked audiences to write down the number one question they had, just out of curiosity. The number one question is, how do I stay focused? I must have asked 1 million people that, which means that most people are subordinating to other people, comparing their lives to other people, trying to live other people's lives instead of living authentically according to their highest values inside. The moment you do, you don't need motivation, you don't procrastinate, you get on with what's priority. But when you expect yourself to live outside your values, you're going to procrastinate. When you expect yourself to be somebody you're not. Emerson said envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. You don't want to be trying to be somebody you're not. You want to be yourself. The most powerful you'll ever be is you. I always say that there's no fantasy out there that will compete with the real you. Your highest value is your identity.